This is the finished first page of Replacement, the first short story in the webcomic. And as a lot of things have happened since the last video, so I'm going to go through the different panels and explain what has happened, what I've done of different work on it. So let's start up here, top left, first panel. This hasn't changed very much. I've just detailed things out a little bit more, added some speed indication here, added the headlights in, and detail things. I've also added the caption, it is the sound of the car motor that then cuts out, which I hope is conveyed in a sensible manner. The transition is a little bit better onto this side, but mostly just carried by the bubbles that I'll get onto later. And this panel, I've added the man stepping out of the car, and the shadow of the car and the shadow of the man. And he's just a guy stepping out of the car. And on this one, that went from a rather primitive line art to a fully fledged color image, and he's got the color. I also added a shirt and tie. You can see a little bit. To begin with, he didn't have that, and I just realized that it was missing. I also added an extra bag under his eye to make him seem a little bit more tired, a little bit more worn out after. I mean, this could be Friday afternoon coming home from work after a long day. And here as well, added a little bit more emphasis on these baggy eyes. The text I decided to keep quite square for him. I will be using other kinds of text for other kinds of text in the comic. So, as you saw up here, the caption is written in a different way from his text, and if I have other people speaking, I will do that differently as well. So this is supposed to reflect him in a way, and I think it does, because I've made it very square. It's very straight. I used these guides to make sure that they're somewhat on the line. And it's very neat. It's very straightforward, very square. It's upper middle class citizen kind of thing. It's supposed to convey that, and with the color as well, the dark blue color. There's nothing special about it. There's nothing fancy about it, but it does seem straight and neat. Over here, I added a caption for him having a bit of a moment of silence, as in he stops and just, I don't know what to say, and the dots of, I still don't know what to say. So it's this surprised silence that comes up. He has a bit of a moment of speechlessness when he sees what happens in the next panel. I'll just turn off the guides. Yeah, because at this point he's walked around the car and he's looked at his house, and it's turning into massive soap bubbles. The house is something I've spent a lot of time getting right, and I'll go through from over here. This was one of the first things I did to the house. Put down the base coat of color here and there, following a little bit of a vague outline I made. A bit of bubbles up here. This is a screenshot from earlier in the process. And then I started adding detail to that, adding bubbles and things and color and warping it. I've been using the Photoshop warp tool quite a lot in free transform. You can warp things to make the walls bulge and all of that, and adding more detail. The bubbles themselves have been worked out in parallel to some of this as well, but I'll talk about them in a moment. So let's get back to the house. I also added no wait, where are we now? Yeah, this is the right one. Yeah, I've also added I'll just take it apart actually. Right, in this group, I like to group my layers when I work, so you can because you end up with a lot of layers in a file, so it makes it easier to navigate. So I have a bit of a gleam layer. I have a layer for some of the bubbles on top of the house, a layer for some of the texture and the brick texture here, a layer for some line, and this is just a soft kind of spooky light coming from within the house that I've added as well. And one thing I've added on all of this bottom part of the image is texture. Now it looks a little bit brighter now. I'll zoom in so you can see what's happening. There's a little bit of texture everywhere, a little bit of texture here that wasn't there before. I've made this. It's this. This is it. It's me using custom brushes that I've made in Photoshop. For example, this one or this one, splatters, different things. Just putting on lots of texture, and then I took that layer of texture and put in at a low opacity as an overlay layer. It's an overlay mode and it's got 40% opacity, and I've deleted the bits I didn't want to be affected, so it just adds a little bit of extra onto this lower part of the image, which I really like. Now the bubbles. Yeah, there's quite a lot of bubbles now. In the last video I was talking about how I was making the bubbles from this reference image, and what I've done is I've just painted more bubbles, and I've been copy pasting them and making them bigger, making them smaller, inserting them, adding more bubbles, and I've made sure that they go on top of the divisions between panels because they act as divisions themselves, and I thought it would be a cool effect to have them kind of be on top of everything, a bit of a dimension to the piece. They have a bit of a glow to them, they have a bit of a extra little tinge of light coming onto them, so I'm quite satisfied with the bubbles. Now going to the bottom of the image, we have the man standing out front and we have the car. So let's talk about the car first. The car is, I'll just have a moment. Yes, groups. The car is here. It's line art and it's color, and it is some window. Same principle as I used for the other one, so you can see some of the background through, but I made it a bit darker on this side, so it's the shadow that falls from the house. So here it is, a screenshot of me making it. I actually enlarged the page a bit in order to draw the rest of the car using my reference image of the Honda Accord. So I could be sure that it was somewhat accurate, and I colored it in as well. So I actually, with the use of this image, I've been actually drawing out more of the car than you can see in the comic. I wanted to be sure that it was okay, that it was good. It's like drawing through, you know. Just because you can't see a part of a drawing doesn't mean that you shouldn't draw it, because it'll make the bits that you do see better and more accurate. So that's how I made this bit of the car. And the man standing there, I didn't quite know how I wanted him to stand. It took a while to get it right for his pose. Actually, I have this whole group of layers of different poses and things I tried out for line arts. So let's take away his color. And that's his shadow. Yeah, his shadow. So I tried out, at first I do this silhouette right here. I wanted him to stand. I have about this size. I think there's a bit of a scale issue on this page, that the sizes between things aren't quite right, but I chose to ignore that and just go ahead, because so I tried a couple of different poses and eventually drew the line out on top of that and with that, but I changed it up a bit and detailed it out a bit. You see the subtle changes in here, different poses. But my end results are, wait a minute, oh, not that one, this one, yeah. And turns out like this. So here we are, replacement, the first page is finished.